This is a story about, well, it happened several years ago. I can't remember when, but it was a long time ago. And it was a night that a fellow by the name of Clore Mosier, a sports announcer for General Tire and Rubber Company, and he was the king of the sports world back in Miami back a few years back. But he was being transferred to New York. And for that occasion, my boss, who was Mike O'Neill, the grandson of the owner of General Tire and Rubber Company, a fellow by the name of Mike O'Neill, he was throwing a party for him. And the party was going to be for about 700 people at the Miami Springs Villas. And so it went. I was invited, but I couldn't go there early in the evening. And I had, my son Michael was born, by the way, and I was with Dr. Ed Lauth, L-A-U-T-H, from Miami, and he delivered Michael. And I was so happy that it was a little boy. And then I told Dr. Lauth, I said, everything okay? He said, yes, fine. So he went on to, I said, well, I'm going to go over, I'll meet you at Miami Springs Villas because the gang's over there. Clore Mosier and Mike O'Neill and Andy Demas, my boss, and it was a party night, especially for me because, I had my 6th child born and everything was okay. So anyway, got over there and got into what they call the Red Room at the Miami Springs Villas, and there were 6 or 7 or 8 of us surrounded in this red leather booth and red carpet. It was the Red Room. I mean, it was something very, very fancy. At least I thought it was something that I'd never seen before. So the drinks started coming. Well, I didn't have any dinner that night, and those guys had eaten, and about 10, 11 o'clock, I started drinking pretty heavy with JB and Scotch on the rocks. And the owner of Miami Springs Villas was sitting to next to my boss, and he started pounding with his finger right in his shoulder. He said, I'll tell you why. You've been successful, Mike, talking to Mike O'Neill. He said, because, you was born with a silver spoon in your mouth. Everything was handed to you. If you had to do this that you've got today, you could never make it, Mike. Now, let's be honest. And he kept punching him with his index finger, right in the shoulder. And I'm sitting right next to Mike. And I can't understand why Mike doesn't, just pick him up and, boss or no boss, the owner of the place, just, you can't do this. Come on.
Punch him or something.
Yeah, do something. Well, it got to me, it just happened, and it just kept on and on and on, and finally I couldn't take it. By that time, it was about 2 o'clock in the morning or 2:30, and I'm 3 sheets in. And I said, I'm not going to let this guy get away with this. And he had a black and white seersucker jacket with an open collar, real cool guy. I really didn't know how big this guy was. I didn't forget his name. His first name was Art. And he was sitting at the head of the table, and I went around behind him. And I picked him up by the nape of his neck, and I just picked and twisted that seersucker jacket right around his neck, and I lifted him right up off the chair. The adrenaline was moving in me, and I said, I've got to fix this guy a package and teach him a lesson in my own mind. And finally, after I thought about it, I said, what the hell am I doing? So I just set him back down his chair, and I started walking out. What the hell with you? I don't want to be even in this place. Well, I'm going out, see? All at once, this dude is behind me now, and he picks me up by the nape of the back of the neck and the seat of my pants, and he's running me through these swinging red leather doors going outside, see? And I said, well, I got 2 chances, slim and none. I know I'm drunk. I said, when I go through this swinging doors, I said, I got to hold on. And when I did go through, and it's exactly what I did, I held on to one of the doors, and his body came around to me because of the momentum. That's the way it was going. And when he stopped dead in his tracks, I had him dead to rights. I had him by the neck, threw my arm around his neck, and they had a double-sized, large, big as this big as this framework of Sammy's here, Wurlitzer jukebox.
Yeah.
And it's playing music and all the bubbles, if you know what a Wurlitzer is.
Yeah, the bubbles go around the oval.
Oh yeah, but it was big as that. It was almost big as this plate glass. It was big, monstrous, biggest thing that must have been a one of a kind Wurlitzer. See?
Yeah.
I made up my mind. I said, well, here we go. I said, I'm gonna run this SOB right through the front of this jukebox, and I did. And boy, when I did, bada bim, bada boom, it blew up. The gas in that thing blew up, and fiberglass that it was, a piece of it hit his neck. This guy collapsed. It's like you'd stick a hog. You cut the hog's neck.
Right in the neck.
And he's falling down on all fours and he's bleeding all over me. I'm trying to hold the dude up. Man, he went down and
just did you like pull? Did you pull in?
So you're down and you got blood all over you.
I got blood all over me, and I collapsed because I was wore out by that time, exhausted completely.
Yeah.
And when I fell to the ground, there used to be a program. I can't remember the name of it though. But this guy's name was Bob Clayton, and he would fly from New York to Miami. And
what's that?
I was sitting on my tush on the floor covered with blood from this guy, and this guy's bleeding to death. And luckily, Ed Loft, who delivered the baby, he doesn't drink. And he's got his kit in the back of the Cadillac, and he goes out in the car and gets his sewing kit and everything, and he sews him up right there on the floor. I found out later, he told me, he said, Peter, he said, I'm going to tell you something. He said, this guy, if I hadn't been there, he'd been history.
Yeah.
You'd had a different course of events for your life. I said,
you know something, I probably wouldn't be here.
I said, you got to be kidding me.
Oh, no, I wouldn't be here because Dad.
I said, you got to be kidding me.
I would be a kid that my dad was in prison all
yeah, which could have changed your life.
So anyway, make a long story short, that was a lesson learned that, this Bob Clayton, let me go back here just a second. He put a headlock on me. I'm sitting on the floor, dead drunk, full of blood, and this guy throws one arm across my neck and the other arm on top of his arm and locks me into a lock.
Like a sleeper
I can't breathe. And I'm just struggling for life now because I said, well, good night, Irene, because it's all over with. And my boss, Andy Demas, who's dead, and I died like 20 years ago, he said, Bob, you let go of him right now. If you don't, I'm going to hit you right in your temple. Drop him right now, unleash him right now, and he did. And I felt the pressure loosen up for me. And of course, with that, they picked me up, helped me up, and by that time, Mike O'Neill had ordered his Cadillac to be out front, and we all went out, blood and all. And I said, I can't get in this car like this, Mike. He said, get in the back seat and shut up. And we went on down to Biscayne Bay where Michael lived, and of course, we found out the next morning that thank God that the guy that Dr. Loft made it through, and but it was an experience. You can't, don't drink and too much because it'll come back to haunt you.
When stuff escalates, it can really escalate quick.
It's just cool, be cool, and and be nice, boy. Because I'll tell you, they put nice boys in the clink too.
Hey, that's right.
So anyway, if you want to,
we'll catch him on the next round.
We're here, October 13th. It's 6:30 at the San Diego House. 2007. We're interviewing Papa here and Coco Man, aka, and I'll let him get started on kind of where we left off the last time, and we'll piece everything together. And over to you.
well, let's start back in. Let's start way back, like when my brothers went to war. My dad said, Pete, the boys are all gone now, and the job is up to you to take care of this saloon. I don't know what he was talking about, So he got me a Black's beer case, put it under a national cash register, said this is your number up here, your B. On the keys. Somebody gives you, wants a bottle of beer, it's 12 cents, and one penny goes in here in this allspice can that he cut a hole in for the state tax. I still didn't know what the hell he was talking about. Well, anyway,
How old were you?
I about 13.
13.
So I said, well, how am I going to go to school and do my lessons? And he said, well, you do them at night while you're working in here. I said, well, Pops, I said, I don't know about that. Well, he said, you'll get used to it. So as time goes on, we went through about 4 years of that, and I met all the classic people in Glen Elk, Clarksburg, West Virginia.
Papa, where was the, you were how old? Like 14?
13
And-
took over.
And where was the store at?
In Glen Elk, Clarksburg, West Virginia. Everybody knows where Glen Elk was.
Classic people meaning
Classic people meaning all the pimps and scrubs and whores and downcasts and goobers and so on and so forth. Well, the war ended and I had to make a decision. So I went down to West Virginia University in Morgantown and had $750 in the savings account. That's what at that time was the admissions to West Virginia University for the first semester. And I asked my dad, I said, Pop, I said, I need some money to go to school. He said, well, I said, that's all right, you got a little money in savings, don't you? I said, yeah. Won't you use that first, and if you do good, then I'll go ahead and I'll bankroll you. I said, okay. I said, boy, there goes my money. Gotta do it. Broke my heart. Well, signed up, took my money, and here I am. Professor Darby in Italian class, some Jukmanga in English, algebra, which I hated. My brother said you ought to have the preparatory course, preparatory for college. I'd love to have the general course, just plain common sense course, but I ended up with this obstacle, see. Well, I did one semester of that, and I said, Chuck you, Farley, I'm going to go on and do what I want to do. We got in business with my brother-in-law. Went in the gas station business, can you imagine? Farmington, West Virginia. Way, way back. Well, after 4 years, that didn't work out too good either. We made a few bucks, and I wanted to get in business myself, so we started the Dairy King business, like the Dairy Queen.
Papa, just to confirm, I wanted to see, is this before or after WVU?
This is after WVU.
Okay.
I didn't go back the second semester. I couldn't afford it. My dad said, well, you going to quit school? I said, okay, you don't get no money.
Okay.
Now I'm on my own.
Okay.
Blood and guts.
Papa, did you ever get in any arguments or fights while you were in the gas station business?
Well, there was one day we had
get started in the gas station business.
we had an electrician in the garage part of our complex there, and he was putting up neon lights. His name was Enis West, and what happened that particular day is my brother-in-law Sam borrowed a little mini Harley Davidson and conned this guy into saying, let me take a ride on this little Harley Davidson. And it was payday. Payday there was, mass confusion. You had to have not only 2 people, but about 4 people. Everybody paid their bills, and then they wanted gas, and they checked the radiator and the oil and all that stuff back then. Check my tires, clean my windshields, and so on and so on. Well, Sam's gone for about 20 minutes. In the meantime, I go into the garage, get a bucket of water for this guy's radiator that's blowing up. Early November, and the radiators start freezing up, and I see this guy talking to the electrician in there. The guy's name is Calhoun, Holly Justice. I said, Holly, you can't be talking to Enos because he's on my payroll, $7.50 an hour. I don't want you in there bullshitting to this guy. Get your ass out of here.
Go to about 19.
Said, you goddamn Manassos all alike. So I said, I can't be bothered with this dude. had customers out there waiting to be waited on, and they wanted to pay bills. And my brother-in-law Sam, he's up the highway on his Harley. About a half hour later, this guy finally comes out of the garage. He said, why'd you order me out? I said, listen, this guy Enis West on my payroll. I don't want you in there bullshitting with this guy. Get your ass out of here. He said, I said, won't you make me? Yeah, I said, I'll make you. I said, you better get the hell away from me. I got people waiting for, they want to pay bills, they need gas, they need service.
Enis.
What are you going to do about it? And I said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do about it. You better get your hell out of here because I'll part your hair. I grabbed the oil opener. Better stop it.
No, go ahead.
Keep going.
Wait. Cute.
Phone. Hello.
I said,
Hello.
Stop it.
Hold on.
You're
Go ahead.
ready to part his hair.
Action.
I said, I changed my mind. I'm not going to hit you with this oil cutter. So I had an Air Force jacket on. It had 3 buttons on. I just ripped all the buttons off. I took it off and I said, I'm going to give you one more chance. You better get going, dude. He said, yeah, what are you going to do about it? And he looked like he was picking something out of his back pocket. And about that time, I hit him. One shot. And he rolled about 35 or 40 feet in a circle. It looked like a small tornado whipping up. And when he landed on his knee against the sidewalk. And there it was. There he lay. Damn, they started coming over to me and said, what do you want to do with this guy? He said, Dr. Jenkins is here now. And he said, this guy's kneecap is gone. It went up into his femur. I said, yeah, what do you want me to do? He said, well, Dr. Jenkins wants to know what you want to do. I said, throw him in Buffalo Creek. God damn it, I gave him every chance in the world to get the hell away from me. Well, they took him to the hospital. About 10 days later, I get a summons.
Damn.
$100,000 permanent injuries. I can't believe this. So, I'm getting the sweats now, and I'm remembering who was there, 2 or 3 guys, and I said, so I contacted these guys, and I said, listen, I need some witnesses. You saw what happened. I gave this guy every chance to get the hell away from me, but he looked like he was pulling something out of his hind pocket, and he was going to hit me with it, so I defended myself. I hit him one time, that's all. And it was unfortunate that his kneecap went up into his femur area, and had to remove his kneecap. I'm sorry about that. I really am. Truly sorry. But anyway, that's the way it went. Well, we beat the case anyway. It had the witnesses.
Also, you beat the case?
Beat the case.
You won.
Well, I won, obviously.
No harm, no foul.
See.
Dismissed? Case dismissed?
Case dismissed.
So,
All right. Hey, Hammer, we got 1 minute here, so I'm going to cut this,
I'm
right?
actually out of DVDs.
You're kidding me.
Yeah. so
I give you a job to do, and here I am.
Dude,
All right, we're back here for just a little session. No documentary, just Papa and Dad on the trip.
We only got 1 more minute. Pokemon, we're here in San Diego.
They're actually down on the run to get more discs to continue the documentary.
Having a good time. I just want to say I love this Pokemon.
And I want to say I love both you guys.
Even though he's a Poke prick.
Even though you're both are real poke pricks, love both of you.
Come on. You guys, Dad the boy.
Well, we're just kidding, Pokemon.
You want to spicy meat the ball. You ain't gonna get it.
Now, the other name I call Pokemon is Captain Marvel because he pulls a lot of magic out of his hat.
Yeah, he does.
The real Captain Marvel.
Hey,
Tell him a quick synopsis
I
of
was
what you called me.
I was Captain
Call
Marvel.
me Midnight.
I was Captain Marvel sitting on the back porch listening to them tandem axle trucks rolling to the Bellaterra compound. And boy, I'll tell you, that was a time in my life that I'll never forget.
He called me out. Marvel here. They're on the job. I said, oh, okay.
I can't even hold this thing still.
I met the instructor and the head man 2 or 3 days later, and I said, boy, you guys are awesome. I said, 25 trucks a night. These guys are, tandem axle, 20 ton, 25 ton.